monster's growls are getting closer. Holding his breath, Yosuke presses his back against the wall next to the door. The pounding of his heart is like thunder in his ears, so loud that he fears the creature might hear it. He knows that he might be eaten if it finds him again, but it's all he can do just to keep from crying. At last, the door to his room slowly swings open. Yosuke leaps on the creature as it enters, fear turning his roar into a high-pitched scream. The flesh beast is covered in sludge and vile juices, but before horror can paralyze him, Yosuke brings his bone stake to stabbing down. The monster screams as the stake pierces its chest and punches through to the other side. The stinking creature falls back, writhing in agony. The sight of its pain sets Yosuke's blood on fire.
I can win. I can kill it. If I can finish it off before it enters my head again, I'll be saved. Ah!
Grabbing the bone with both hands, Yosuke twists again and again, gouging an ever-widening hole out of the monster's flesh. The monster convulses and gurgles, its trembling tentacles reaching up as though begging for help.
Die! Die! Die!
Yosuke knocks it to the floor, then rings his heel crashing down on its flopping body again and again. With each stomp, its groans and spasms grow weaker. When the monster at last starts twitching, Yosuke, panting hard, tears the stake from its corpse and rises to his feet. Something squeals. Yosuke turns around to see another, smaller monster peeking up at him from the stair landing.
So, there's still one left.
His previous desperate, rage-filled attack both exhilarated him and gave him a taste for violence. This one will be easier. It's smaller and weaker after all. Grinning crazily, Yosuke raises his stake and sidles towards the smaller creature. The small monster flees, screaming from the stairs. Not about to let his prey escape, Yosuke roars and gives chase. The thought that maybe the nightmare will end if he kills every monster feeds his savage bloodlust. When the monster trips and falls in the dining room, Yosuke leaps on top of it and brings the stake down with all of his might. He stabs it again and again, mercilessly shredding and pulverizing its flesh. His bloodlust unsatisfied until there is nothing left of its original shape. Eventually, the only sound in the house is Yosuke's heavy breathing. He has killed 2 monsters, but the nightmare shows no sign of ending. Yosuke staggers to the front door and goes outside. The sky, the city, everything has gone mad. Twisted shapes, maddening color, stinking air. There is no escape, no end to the nightmare. The last remnant of Yosuke's sanity vanishes in the wind.
Hi, mister.
Yosuke turns toward the sound of a young girl's voice. She is standing in front of the house next door, wearing a spotless one-piece over her pure white skin. In the midst of this filth-ridden world, she seems to be glowing with beauty.
How do I look to you, mister?
You're very cute.
Yosuke feels a sudden black lust rising within him.
Really? Oh, then the experiment might be a success!
Yosuke walks up to the strangely jubilant girl and brushes his hand against her long, smooth hair.
Such a lovely girl. You must be the only one in the whole world.
Mister?
She looks curiously up at the man towering over her, perhaps sensing something disturbing in his hungry stare.
How about we play a game, little girl?
Okay, but what are we going to do?
Yosuke says simply.
Everything that will please me, of course.
Grinning broadly, he grabs the girl's collar and tears the front of her one-piece wide open. Shock and fear twist the girl's lovely, delicate features, stimulating Yosuke's sadism. Even after killing those 2 monsters, The embers of violence are still smoldering in his heart. And now they have new fuel to burn.
I like your expression, girl. Won't you show me an even prettier one?
Yosuke forces himself upon Saya in his deluded, lust-filled state, reveling in defiling the purity of Saya. Not quite what she had planned. Fuminori comes upon the scene and is filled with rage as he hears her cry out for him.
The monster finally stops mindlessly gorging itself on Saya's body and turns its head to look at me. Surprised by my own composure, I easily slip past it and grab the meat cleaver sitting next to the sink. Without a moment's hesitation, I slash at what appears to be its face. It screams and staggers away from Saya. My attack must have blinded it, because it flails its tentacles wildly as it tries to drive me away. My bloodlust still unsated, I calmly seize one of its tentacles and plunge my weapon twice more into its quivering flesh. The blade slices through its body with fascinating ease, each strike sending its blood spraying into my face. As I carve the monster to pieces and hear its hideous screams, my mind is finally consumed by the flames of rage. This thing hurts Saya! No mercy. Its death alone won't satisfy me. I give myself to the fury, howling at the top of my lungs as I slash and slash and slash and slash and slash. Even after the flesh beast stops moving, I keep slashing until I realize that its corpse can no longer feel pain. Cursing myself for killing it so quickly, I angrily stab the cleaver into the floor, snapping it in half. When my thoughts finally begin to regain some order, I find myself still digging the broken knife into the kitchen floor. The monster is gone. All that's left are pieces of it scattered everywhere. I stop cutting into the tile, and in the sudden silence I can hear Saya's faint sobs coming from a corner in the kitchen. Saya. Unable to find the right words, I pull the cowering Saya into my arms. She stiffens in fear at first, but as soon as she realizes that it's me, she clings to my body and cries.
I was scared. So scared.
Not knowing what to say, I can only keep holding her. This should never have happened to Saya. Everything is to blame. Yes, including myself. I couldn't protect her. If I'd been with her, then maybe I could have stopped this.
I'm sorry.
She says over and over again, her voice choked with tears. Not wanting to hear that from her, I pull her head into my chest. Don't say that, Saya. It's not your fault. I try to reassure her, but she shakes her head vigorously in denial.
No, it is. I did it.
I don't understand. What is she saying? You did... what?
I messed with his brain.
She answers, glancing at the dismembered monster with her swollen eyes.
I made the inside of his head the same as yours. I made him see the world like you do.
It takes me some time to understand the meaning of Saya's words, and even longer to decide how to respond. What? But how? Finally regaining her composure, Saya responds to my confusion in a low voice.
I can do stuff like that. I can change the bodies of other living things. I've had this ability since I was born. Every organism is different, so I have to study them in detail before I know how to change them. By doing some research, I figured out what happened to your brain. So, I wanted to see if I could do the same thing to someone else.
But why?
I thought that if everyone were like you, they would all be kind to me.
My heart aches at the loneliness in her voice as she confesses her sorrowful wish.
But that man, he wasn't kind at all. He said he wanted to hurt me, break me and me.
She starts crying into my chest again, unable to say anymore. I gently rub her back while trying to get my jumbled thoughts together. Saya, what is she? This question is beyond me. However, there is one thing that I can answer, here and now. Saya is mistaken. She is misunderstanding something vital. You think that I'm kind to you because of the accident?
Yeah.
She nods sadly. I smile and shake my head. You're wrong. That was only the beginning. It's not that simple. The time you and I spent together after we met, those days, those experiences, are what made us what we are. Understand?
Fuminori.
I've been together with you all this time, and it's because of that. You became important to me, and I became kind to you. See? It's harder than you think. Saya is still crying, but now her tears feel warm against my chest.
Yeah, I understand. I finally understand now.
Her smile shines through her tears.
I only have you, Fuminori. There will never be anyone else like you.
Now more than ever, I feel the depth of the bond between us, and I'm sure that Saya feels the same way. I wrap my arms tightly around Saya and seal her lips with mine. Saya responds, winding her arms around my neck as our tongues desperately seek each other's warmth. At this moment, Saya is my whole world. At this moment, I am hers. The world exists for us alone. Of course, I still haven't told her something very important. I don't know why I've never said it before. Perhaps because it was always so obvious. However, I should put it into words at least once. This oath of mine. Saya,
Wait.
She stops me with a finger against my lips.
Before that, Fuminori, tell me one thing. What do you desire?
What do I desire? Saya nods, staring into my eyes with unusual solemnity.
Like I said before, I can affect the bodies of living things in a way that nothing else can. And now that I've learned how to manipulate human brains properly,
Saya pauses and takes a deep breath before continuing.
I can turn your brain back to normal.
What? Until now, such a thing hasn't even been in the realm of possibility.
I just have to do the opposite of what I did to that man. It's really simple.
I replay Saya's words in my head to be sure of their meaning.
So tell me, Fuminori, do you want to return to your old life? Do you want to take back what you lost in the accident?
Well, of course. I answer without thinking. If it's possible to go back, then I want to. I think. I've never wondered if there could be any other answer. I stopped dwelling on this question a long time ago. If I'd been asked several months ago, I wouldn't have hesitated. But what about now? What does it mean to wish for the past? And what could it do to me and Saya? As soon as these thoughts occur to me, my true feelings become unclear. The hurried answer I just gave her was less certain than I thought.
Oh. Yeah, of course you would.
Saya smiles softly, her expression an unreadable mixture of what seemed to be sorrow and relief. Seeing it fills me with sudden unease, as though I've just wounded her deeply with my careless words. Hey, Saya,
It's okay, Fuminori. Don't say any more.
Saya kisses me again, as though to silence me, and thrusts her tongue into my mouth with even greater passion than before. As the sweet softness of her tongue clouds my mind, I begin to feel an urgent need to say what she prevented me from saying, to speak those most important words. Saya. I can't speak, for some reason, and my mind is hazy. My consciousness is slipping away as the euphoria from her kiss spreads to my entire body.
Sleep well, Fuminori.
I hear Saya whisper softly from far away.
Don't worry. When you wake up, everything will be over.
That's no good. I have to tell you something before I sleep. Just one thing. Such thoughts are meaningless, however, as oblivion calls me into its embrace. When I awoke, the first thing that greeted me was a terrible stink. Suzumi-san's body was covered in flies, and I could smell the rotten stench that you would expect from a corpse. The night had ended, but Saya was nowhere to be seen in the morning light. Aside from the blood-covered floor, the kitchen looked the same as it had in my youth. In contrast, the colors of the living room that had been so soothing to me the day before were now a stark reminder of what a distant world I'd been living in. Knowing it would be futile, I wandered the house searching for Saya. For almost an hour, I tried in vain to deny reality. Then I called the police. When the operator answered, I couldn't stop myself from crying. It had been such a long time since I'd heard a human voice other than Saya's, after all. As became clear later, Suzumi-san had murdered his family before I killed him. Unable to give the police a satisfactory explanation, I was arrested for all 3 murders. And when they found the remains of Takahata Omi in my house, the charge became 4 counts of murder and 1 count of mutilating a corpse. During my interrogation, I told them everything exactly as it had happened, in every detail. The detectives didn't believe me, of course, but the psychiatrist who came later did. He had me moved from the jail to a much cleaner white room. That's right. This room looks just as stark white to me as it does to everyone else. In the end, they declared me incapable of answering for my actions. Everything that had happened to me was real, but was part of a reality that was incompatible with the world outside of this room. So the doctors gave me a tiny space all to myself, a place where I could live in my own reality. I am sad that I wasn't believed, but I know that it couldn't be helped. In this world, reality is what the vast majority of people say it is. I simply had the misfortune to step outside of that box. The walls of my room are undeniably white. Thankful for that alone, I will live out the rest of my life. Everyone said that there had never been any girl named Saya. Well, so be it. Saya was probably never part of their world. But why shouldn't I be able to hear Saya's voice here, in my room? This is my reality, after all. A continuation of the very real time that we spent together. How long did I wait with such thoughts flowing through my head? One night, I awoke to the sound of something crawling down the hallway. The sound would not normally have woken me, but I must have had a premonition that night. Sleeping lighter than usual, I had waited for her arrival, and so I knew instantly that it was her. Saya, is that you? She did not answer, but I could feel her outside my door, struggling with some internal conflict. Hey, why won't you let me hear your voice? After a long silence, something small was slid through the narrow bars of my peephole. It was a cell phone, the screen already showing a notepad with freshly entered text. I couldn't suppress a chuckle at Saya's uncharacteristic display of shyness. I don't care about that at all, I said, sending the phone back through the bars. I just want to hear you, see you. After a short pause, the phone returned to my side. I see. I'd started to suspect that it might be so. Everything had appeared warped to my eyes. Only Saya had looked normal. I'd thought that she was somehow unique. In truth, however, she'd probably been a different kind of unique than I'd imagined. It wasn't that my senses hadn't distorted her appearance, but that she had been so unusual that she had seemed normal to my twisted mind. Saya's true form was something other than what I had known. Now, however, I could see her as she really was. I couldn't blame her for not wanting to reveal herself to me. A girl's heart was not for me to understand. I just had to accept it. I tried to say something to you that day, but couldn't. Do you remember? I slid the phone back to her. I smiled wryly at the text on the screen, wondering if she really thought me so heartless. How could I forget? No one was listening, but still, it would have been embarrassing to speak the rest. So this time, I typed it into the phone. I slid the phone back through the slot. I could sense her trembling outside my door. I couldn't hear or see her, but still, I knew. Saya was crying. Silently. I wouldn't have cared, you know. Perhaps my words offered no comfort, spoken so late. Even so, I wouldn't have cared. I had wanted to return to my old life, true, but I would have abandoned that wish for Saya. I know that I would have gone with her, hand in hand, as far as we could, even to the most forbidden of places. Saya too must have known that I'd been prepared, and because she knew, she stopped me from saying those words. If I had spoken that oath, there would have been no going back. She ended it before that could happen, and vanished from my life. I look at the words on the screen and shake my head. It's not your fault. If I hadn't hesitated then, you would have found the courage, right? It's no one's fault. Saya couldn't bring herself to take everything from me, and I couldn't bring myself to give up everything for her. We were too weak to find happiness. Saya, what will you do now? I see. You want to go home, don't you? A short time passed with no words or messages exchanged. I wonder how many times in that brief silence she considered answering yes or no. When the phone finally returned, the characters on the screen seemed strangely uncertain. Well, I hope you find your father. The time had come for our parting. She had chosen her path, and I had given her my blessing. Nothing more needed to be said. If you change your mind, I'll always be here. You can come see me whenever you want. I read her final message and returned the phone to the other side. Goodbye, Saya. She gently slapped my door in response, and then I heard the sound of her sliding off down the hallway. And then I was alone, in the silence of the night. Ever since that day, I have been waiting. Perhaps Saya really did return to where she came from. Perhaps she is still wandering somewhere today, looking for her father. It must be hard. She must be lonely. When she can no longer stand being alone, she will surely return to me. I am the only one who will ever comfort her with kind words, after all. And so I will wait. Dreaming of her voice and her face, I will wait. Forever. In my white world.
Let's Start Project.